Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. In today's video we're going to take a look at the Benchmade Proper Model 319. And this is a new offering from Benchmade, just came out. And the reason I picked one up is because this was an unexpected offering from Benchmade. I do feel like the industry as a whole is kind of gravitating towards slip joints or traditional style knives. And this is one of the few instances that Benchmade is at the front of the curve and not at the back end. So anyways, I think it's an interesting offering. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but let's jump into these specs, overall impressions, details. Quick caveat, I'm not a traditional knife collector or aficionado or expert by any means, so if you use different terms, my apologies. Also, I've seen quite a few discussions around whether or not this is a traditional knife. Seems that the primary consensus is that it's not, and so, I'm just going to refer to it as a traditional style, which I think is a fair description of it. So, let's jump into the specs. Alright, and we're not going to use the Para 2 as a size comparison. Rather, I think that this Victorinox Cadet is a much more, comparable option, and just about everyone should have one of these or has had one of these at some point, no doubt. So the specs on the Benchmade Proper here: blade length of 2.86 inches, handle length of 3.85, giving us an overall length of about 6.69. Now the handle thickness here is 0.4 inches. So less than half an inch thick. There we are next to the Cadet. And it does weigh in right around 2.3 ounces. So this one is the Red G10. There's also a micarta edition as well. No doubt there will be more editions down the line. I think this is going to be a very popular knife for Benchmade. So, alright. So those are the specs. Of course, it is a slip joint. As you guys can see here, it's got a half stop, and the spring tension about moderate, not too light, not too hard. Nail nick is quite usable. Some of the other specs: this does use S30V, as you can see right here, so a modern steel compared with carbon steels of many traditional style knives. So, okay, overall impressions. I think I can't really talk about the impressions without listing off the retail, well, not the retail, but basically the street price for these is about $115. So, for maybe a traditional style production knife, possibly at the mid to higher end. Once you get into the customs, a lot of slip joints can end up in the thousands of dollars. So, it's not a super expensive or high-end piece by any means. The fit and the finish is pretty decent. There are a few things where it's not perfect, but again, at that $115 price point, I really wasn't expecting perfection. To be honest, it's more enjoyable than I thought it would be. It's kind of a charming little piece. Love the Red G10 on this one. I really like the satin finish. I think it's just kind of a, if I can use the term, charming piece. It's going to have a tremendous amount of popularity in the market, not from necessarily knife collectors, but from your everyday Joe. The Benchmade brand itself carries a tremendous amount of cachet, and people are very comfortable and perhaps familiar with slip joint knives. So, I think it's going to see a lot of popularity. Again, it takes elements of the Cadet or many other Victorinox knives, but it gives you a more comfortable, larger handle, better steel in my opinion. S30V versus carbon steels for, again, the everyday Joe. But I quite like it. I think that the fit and finish is in line with the price. So, anyways, hopefully that gives you something to expect. Of course, torque screws on this one, phosphor bronze washers. So, again, somewhat modern construction. Alright, let's take a look at the specifics here. So, first kind of let me show you some of the areas where the fit and the finish isn't quite perfect, and we're going to see that on the spine of the knife. So, you know, you'll see places where they don't line up perfectly flush. You know, especially around here, you'll see those kind of small inconsistencies or gaps. You know, again, so not perfect, but you know, for just right above the $100 mark, I wasn't expecting perfection. Now, comparable options to this would be that perhaps excel or beat this one. If fit and finish would, of course, be Great Eastern Cutlery or GEC, who are going to have knives around the same price, and from what I hear, have better fit and finish. So, now, by way of example, I do have two custom slip joints here. So, this is the Meganique from Johan Ellis or J.D. Ellis out of South Africa. And this one, you know, is the fit and finish is perfect. Everything is just perfectly mated and matched. Very beautiful piece, you know, Damasteel carbon fiber, completely handmade. Of course, there is a huge price differential between these two, though, this one being about 4 times the price of this one. So, you know, that's what you get when you spend this much money. So, this one also has a much more stout, you know, back spring on it, and the half stop is just as rock solid as it is in the open position, which is quite impressive. So, there's one example where the fit and finish, you know, excels, but again, you know, price comparative. Another one, this is a really cool piece on loan. This is the, actually I don't recall what model this is. It's a new model from J.B. Stout, who is quite a popular custom maker. And he started producing some slip joints. So along with makers like him, who are very, very popular, you have companies like Rick Hinder who are doing slip joints now, and you know, other slip joint makers who are becoming quite prominent. Enrique Pena and Jared Ogier are ones that I'm familiar with. Again, there are many outside of that, you know, Tony Bowes, people like that who are much more prominent. Anyhow, so let me show you guys a quick look at this one. So here's an example of, I think, a shift in the industry. So he has been very, very popular for his titanium frame locks, and now he's producing slip joints. So, all right, we already talked about the blade steel. So it is a saber grind or half height flat grind. The secondary bevel is fairly consistent. It's not perfect. You know, the height does differ from the back to the front a little bit. And again, pretty close, but not perfect. Now, it is hair shaving sharp. The edge is very, very nice, but the secondary bevel's not perfect. Now, it's also not the thinnest slicer. They left a little bit of steel behind the edge, and I think that was for a very, very good reason. This knife, if it's as popular as I think it is, will be picked up by a lot of everyday people who aren't knife enthusiasts, and they're going to do things to this knife that, honestly, you and I would probably be in fear of, and the company would be like, why are you doing that? So, by way of example, I had a coworker who had a Benchmade Presidio Auto, and he would do terrible, terrible things to the knife. He would use it to pry screws and nails and bullets out of things. He would use it like a hammer. I mean, he just did things to the knife that should not be done to a knife. And, you know, to him, he was just like, well, it's a tool. You know, he didn't really assign it specific duties as a cutting implement. He rather, you know, used it for anything and everything. And so this knife, I think, is probably going to see some use and abuse that, again, I can't even fathom. And so that's probably why they left a little bit of steel behind the edge and did a saber grind as opposed to many of the other grinds out there, because people are going to get this knife and they're just going to beat the crap out of it. Again, doing things that's not intended to do, especially in a non-locking fashion. So, probably a smart move to go with the grind that they went with. Machine, you know, it's machine ground. You can still see some of the grinds. Fairly nice, you know, kind of stone wash. Again, first production, which I wish they didn't do, but the very attractive butterfly there. A little bit of jimping on the top, moderate grab, actually low grab. Again, I don't really think it's necessary on a knife that's non-locking. You shouldn't be putting this to, you know, excessive use. So, all right, half stop, fairly tight, not bad, not bad. So, and then it is fairly smooth again on the phosphor bronze washers. All right, red G10 on this one. Again, I quite like it. It's kind of a nice warm color, has a good feel to it. Moderate grip, not slick, but not too grippy. Again, kind of an every middle of the road type of appeal. So there's the nail nick. Again, not, you know, traditional by any means, but it works well. Could you do it without a nail if you know, bite your nails off or you don't have one? Yeah, it does give you enough purchase to do that. So, yeah, that works just fine. Lanyard hole at the back. And let's do some up close at kind of the fit and finish. Again, you see kind of these gaps where it's not mated properly. Kind of all the way down there. The middle made it a little bit better, but I think you guys will catch that in the high def here. So, but it is designed to be taken down. Again, Torx construction, washers, and I think that's a good thing for people who might need to take this apart and potentially clean it. So, in my extra large hands, it's kind of an odd fit. If I go all the way up, my pinky ends up on the hump here. So if my hands were a little bit smaller, it would actually fit a little bit better. Or if my hands were a little bit bigger, it would fit a little bit better. You know, if I come down here and I get my pinky around the butt of that hump, then I'm a little bit further back than I want. I'd prefer to be up a little bit more. So, not terrible. Again, this knife is for light duty everyday tasks, although some people will put it into roles that they definitely should not. So, okay. So, I don't know, just by way of size comparison, why not? The Meganique from Johann Ellis, and this other option here from JB Stout. Okay, so again, a number of different traditional style knives that are not specifically traditional. It's really the happy medium that I like. I'm really not interested in like jigged bone and materials of that sort. It's just not my cup of tea. So seeing these options come out that carry the traditional style while having, you know, more modern materials and stills and finishes is something that does interest me quite a bit more, and part of the reason that I picked this up. Okay, so I think we'll see more companies producing slip joints in the near future, and yeah, hopefully we start seeing some really good quality options. Again, I probably need to pick up something from Great Eastern Cutlery to perhaps serve as a basis for traditional knives or traditional style knives in that $100 range. But for now, I do like this piece. I do like the design. I like the feel, and I think it's pretty cool. So that is just a look at the Benchmade Proper Model 319, and yeah, more videos to come. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Take care.